Did you coin the phrase Latin breakdown?
I did not coin the phrase. It was my brother named Randy who coined the phrase Latin breakdown. And
I definitely remember records like Bongo Rock, Apache, Just Begun, and I recognized early that all those records had elements of Latin percussions. And those were the parts, those were the quote unquote breaks that made the break dancers break and that made the people dance a little harder.
Let's take a look way, 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 way back when Break Boys started, you know? What do you think they were dancing off of? Apache.
All right, here we go again. Every time Latinos hear bongos or congas in African American music or funk songs or whatever, they assume that that connection is to them. Now, in the case of Apache, that is not true at all, because the inspiration for Apache comes from a Black American whose name is Preston Epps. Now, the gentleman you see before you, his name is King Erickson. He's a Bahamian, right? So the reason why Dr. Cologne presented him, now let me tell you, he's the one who's actually playing congas on Apache. So the reason why Dr. Cologne presented him, because he's Caribbean, because it ties into his narrative, Africa to the Caribbean to the United States. All right. Now, here's what Dr. Cologne won't tell you is that the Caribbean, a lot of the islands had drum bands. It just wasn't in North America.
Yes, 1630 in the British Caribbean, in Barbados, we see the first laws banning the African drum. The African drum posed a problem for European colonizers who witnessed enslaved people using the drums to communicate across plantations and other long distances, and of course participating in their African culture and spirituality. We can find the African drum being banned in St. Kitts in 1711 and again in 1722, in Jamaica as early as 1688 and again in 1717, with the laws across the Caribbean being constantly refreshed. Even in places like Trinidad and Tobago, where the African drum was banned 49 years after emancipation. Yet through this, Caribbean people resisted and created the steel pan. Along with being seen as heathenish and against Christian values, the drum was associated with rebellion, hence why the drum was banned in Bermuda in 1761 in response to a revolt by enslaved people. So the African drum isn't merely just a musical instrument. It is a connection to spiritual practices, it is communication with ancestors, and it is resistance and rebellion.
Now, I could actually make a good argument to suggest that our drum culture in America, especially when you talk about the Hudson River Valley up north, that was pretty much more intact than almost any place in the Caribbean. Because when we talk about Pinkster, that went on for over 200 years without any interruptions. Now, we can't say that about the Caribbean. Even the Bahamas, they had a drum band. And guess what? Even if you look really deep into this thing, you will find out that even Puerto Rico, for a period of time, had a drum band, as well as Cuba. So no country in the Caribbean was absent of some drum band or another. So it's misleading when Cologne presents this idea of Africa, the Caribbean, to America.
The rock dance is the precursor to what would come to be known as floor rocking, top rocking, up rocking, down rocking, okay, going off, breaking.
The Birth of Breaking, a new book out here by Saru Abrahamian. And he goes through the history of breaking, and he found the origins. We already know what the origins are. It's come from the Black American community. Let's get into it. Now, I would strongly urge you guys, if you're interested in the history of breaking, this is the book to get. It's very informative and very detailed. All right. Now, who is Saru Abrahamian? All right. He's an assistant professor of dance at the University of Illinois. He has taught, performed, and judged leading hip hop events throughout the US, Europe, Eurasia, and given workshops and presentations at universities throughout North America. His articles have appeared in the journals of Black Studies, Dance Research Journals, Oxford Handbooks of Hip Hop Studies, and so forth. This guy has dedicated most of his life to finding out what is the history of breaking. Now, let me read a little bit of this to give you an idea what kind of information is in this book. Here we go. Herc also moved his traditional block parties from the courtyard of the West Bronx apartment buildings to Cedar Playground, just a few blocks north, while also recruiting 2 young b-boys turned DJs named Timmy Tim and Clark Kent to assist him in the parties. By expanding into the public venues, Herc began attracting younger African Americans and non-African American teenagers. We're talking about the Puerto Ricans, right? Who began gaining a glimpse of what had been previously taking place in mostly Black spaces. Younger breakers were just as central to this evolutionary period within the dance as they were to its formation, with perhaps the most famous group during the late 1970s being the subdivision of the Zulu Kings, known as the Little Zulus or Baby Zulus. Members of the group are often referenced today as having added greater velocity variations to the floor moves they saw their predecessors perform, although many were roughly 11 to 14 years old and unable to get into the clubs where Herc, Smokey, and Flash and other hip-hop DJs would perform. They were able to experience the outdoor block parties and communities events now flourishing throughout the Bronx. As younger Zulu members, they took to the breaking specifically to express their adolescent identity. Indeed, names such as Beaver, Robbie Rob, Swain, and Little Boy Keith are commonly cited today as having patented the wholly new footwork patterns, steps, poses, spins, and acrobatic twists in the air. These unique displays proved compelling that others soon adapted them, and their impact reverberated even beyond breaking's original African American constituency. Now check this out. It was a Black thing, insists Kevy Kev, a pioneer member of the hip-hop group the L Brothers. I saw no Puerto Ricans around at that time. We was in the Bronx. Those b-boys, they were Black, and they were going off. It's a whole nother rhythm. Virtually every early practitioner, and this is him speaking, this is Saru speaking, virtually every early practitioner that I have come across confirmed Kevy's assessment. Indeed, much of the first-hand testimony regarding breaking cultural background is issued in response to the mischaracterization that breaking was a Puerto Rican entity. For instance, when asked if he had ever danced against a Puerto Rican Beaver of the Little Zulu Kings, emphatically said, no. They came on the scene later on, like after I got out of it. So this is the kind of information that's in this book, very detailed information. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but this guy, he's Armenian. He's not Black. He's not Puerto Rican. He's not, he has no stake in this game. He's just giving the information. He's just telling the truth as he sees it and what the research tells him what happened. That's it.
The dance form I'm involved in, I felt a bigger obligation to do scholarly things to try to rectify it somehow. It's crazy. We think about the past, like, everything from jazz to rock and roll, and we see this cycle happen where art forms coming from the Black community get whitewashed, get erased, the founders get buried in obscurity when it's so, irrefutable where it comes from, and it's like something like that happening in the hip hop dance, and it was like unbelievable to me. I thought that was something in the past growing up. For some reason, dance is kind of, even a lot of, let's say, musical forms that come out of the Black community, like jazz, rock and roll, funk, they always have a dance component central to its beginnings. But those are also like kind of not as uplifted by mainstream society. In the community there, it's always there, present, The same thing with hip-hop's beginnings, very much oriented around movement and music and rhyming and art. But the dance thing, once it enters the mainstream, gets pushed to the side. And I think that's something to do with Western society devaluing dance. know, like you said, the people who do this art form, who have the creators, first of all, definitely didn't do it for money. There was no money then. And then as time has gone on, those who kind of maintained it and contributed to it don't get involved for money purposes initially. But then once that money factor enters, things can get shifty. But, you know, at the end of the day, the community and the value the dance gives you is like super special and important, and not to like take for granted. And the book is about why you can't really even understand hip-hop music without looking at dance. I mean, it was so integral to how the music developed. And vice versa, you can't understand the dance without understanding the musical choices and practices that spark the dance. So it's this kind of like whatever, you know, like a cycle that's affecting each other.
How does honoring Black creatives align with your mission here at the University of Illinois?
My mission here is like, you know, to do research, to continue teaching, and to continue growing and learning. I mean, so much of American culture, period, it comes from the Black community. You know what I mean? That's just like a fact, and it's important to recognize that, pay homage to it, and respect that, you know? So, I mean, I think I try to do that with everything I do, not just things related to breaking or hip-hop, but, you know, all avenues. Even like, you know, in the dance department, we talk about a lot of contemporary dance and things, concert dance. A lot of concert dance has been influenced by Africanist aesthetics and things like that. So we try to, not just myself, but many people in the department here, definitely put an emphasis on that. Racial justice in general, you know.
I played a clip earlier featuring Dr. Cologne saying that the rock dance is the precursor to breaking. That's clearly a lie, because not only did I prove that the precursor to the rock dance comes from us, the history also indicates that breaking comes from the Black American community, not the Latin community. All of these dances that were done in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s are the precursors to breaking, and they all come from us. Dr. Cologne is delusional. That's clearly the fact. Why would he knowingly mislead his people into believing that hip-hop, and in this case, breaking, was created together? That opinion of his is what I call tetherism. That's right, it's tetherism. There is no factual basis that I came across to support such a position. Filling your people with a false sense of pride is shameful, my friend. They deserve better. They deserve the truth. The truth is far more liberating. You need to come to terms with being the first students of hip hop. There is nothing wrong with that.
The breakers, like the original breakers were, they were Black. And here's some of the names. Sasa, Trixie, Dancing Doug, Black Jerry, Easy Mike, Flippin' Mike, female breakdancers, Sister Boo, Mother Earth, Janice. Then, as years went on, is where the Latins got involved, Spanish people got involved.
DJ Kool T and Mr. Lee. I gotta give them credit because back then they was the ones that used to really give the Puerto Rican shout outs. Because when I was dancing, he would come out and say, check out the Puerto Rican B-boy in the house, B-boy Spider-Man. And I would go out there and be dancing because, you know, it was kind of rare to see because most of the Black kids were doing it. And if you was a Black kid, then you was doing, you was either down with the Zulu Nation or something like that. And Zulu Kings. And as far as the B-boys, the Puerto Rican B-boys, there wasn't really too many of us out there. So when they seen one of us dance, it was a big thing. He would be like, wow, check that guy out. Oh, look at that cute Puerto Rican, he's cute. Look at, you know, it's like looking at a little puppy dog, you know, and you're like, wow, it's a big doggy. That's how they would see us, you know, because we was new to it. And then after a while, you know, they started downplaying it, not to just the brothers, you know, but they started downplaying something that we love. You know, started saying, hey, you're chunking your hand, why you still dirtying your clothes for, why you always on the floor, and things like that. And I think if I was, you know, if my self-esteem was real low, I probably would have never been a dancer, because I probably would have been, my feelings would have been hurt, you know. But instead, I love this dance so much, I continue to do it. And everybody else, as far as Puerto Rican B-boys, through the generations, they felt the same way. It just got bigger and better. We got bigger, better, stronger. The earliest and first B-boys were black. All the crews and mostly everybody was black. When Latinos started breaking, they were emulating what they saw, the black people doing. Okay, that's just a fact. That's just a fact. But soon afterwards, what really added to the decline of b-boying in the black community and even in the hip-hop community was that the girls weren't with it.
The Latinos, Moreno means black, they be like, yo, that's that Moreno style, and that's the original style of b-boying.
Part of the phenomenon known as hip-hop culture. It began in the 70s in New York.
First of all, breakdance is pretty much a commercial term. The actual term is b-boy, or b-girling, depending upon the gender. The dance itself is an immediate extension from the good foot, which James Brown was doing. And what happened was, brothers in the Bronx started taking it down to the floor, like a real quick movement, and then it was called the boing, and that term was
b-boying.
Though black kids invented breaking as we know it, as we understand it, it was the Puerto Rican kids that put breakers on their backs.
Everything, all the breaking and stuff like that was considered underground. And so Kool Herc brought everything out into the open. And that was like, say, 74, 75. All the underground stuff, all the in-house, all the hallway dances, and all the house party dances were brought out to the street. And the more they took it to the street, the more nationalities got involved in it. It was no longer an Afro-American thing. The Hispanic took to the dance.
I'm from the neighborhood where the buildings are on fire.
Yeah, I made that today.
And in that neighborhood, a lot of the pioneers of hip hop, Bambaataa, Flash,
desde el barrio que viene él, vienen muchos de los pioneros de...
and all the b-boys were all black. I didn't see no Latino b-boys.
No había ningún b-boy latino, todos eran negros.
Yeah. Never heard of TBB, never heard of CC, never heard of them. In my neighborhood, all the b-boys, never heard of them. The king of breaking was Beaver, Zulu King.
El rey del breaking era Beaver de los Zulu Kings.
He was the #1 b-boy in my time.
What time was
Late 70s, 77, 78, 79. Beaver was the king. Zulu Kings were the best in the Bronx.
It is blacks and Puerto Ricans now. It is not just Puerto Ricans. Blacks were the first b-boys and the first group that was solidified that essence and b-boy motion was Zulu Kings. First group to ever exist. Period. And it was simple. They were very powerful. They were very, aggressive in their style.
As if we needed more proof. By 1976, Latinos were flowing into what had become a mostly black milieu. That means basically a social event or social position. And revived the b-boy dance that blacks had begun to abandon. See, the jams back then were still close to 90% African American, as were most of the earliest b-boys, says track 2, quoted by Christina Veron and cited by Chain. They were like, yo, breaking is played out whenever Hispanics would do it. But Latinos gave breaking or break dancing new life. And just when rap music was starting, Latinos took part in the music too. While it may be true that Colón didn't discuss language or culture in his propaganda video, I feel it's important to focus on the one thing that people often overlook when talking about the origins of hip-hop, which is language or vernacular. In reality, language is the key to determining where hip-hop culture comes from. Now, if we call hip-hop a culture, then we must acknowledge that language is the key to promoting cultural cohesion. So what do I mean by cultural cohesion? I'm talking about the way we speak. Clearly, there's an agreed upon way people in the hip-hop community speak to one another. And I contend they use AAV as that means of communication. So without language, you don't have culture. And vice versa, without culture, you don't have language. So when you look at all the elements With the exception of graffiti, one would be hard-pressed not to admit that hip-hop culture is deeply rooted in Black American culture. I've done several videos talking about culture. I talked about what it means to be a product of acculturation, enculturation, and assimilation. You see, Puerto Ricans who live in proximity to Black Americans don't understand that the patterns, or if they understand it, they won't acknowledge it. They don't understand that the patterns and the cadence of their speech as it relates to hip-hop language was not birthed by their people. It was birthed through us. They grew up in a culture where AAV was the norm. AAV, or if you want to call it Ebonics, was and still is the predominant form of communication in the hip-hop community. The majority of the slang words and phrases used in hip-hop music and in the streets today can be traced to Black American culture.
First, there's the way in which we all use different kinds of English in different situations. It isn't just black speakers who use formal English at work or at school and speak more casually at home and at play. All English speakers do it. And secondly, when we recognize the enormous contribution blacks have made to English, we can see again that major changes in the language don't happen because of educators and writers, but for the most part in the streets, on the lips of ordinary people. The streets of the ghetto have been one of the great recent phrase and word factories of English. Philadelphia graffiti artists, or writers as they're known, are hitting up this wall in honor of the Scanner Boys, the fast-talking breakdancing sensation of the neighborhood. The traditional improvisations of Black English are alive and well with the Scanner Boys. Their leader is Prince of the Ghetto. He is, in his own way, a man of words, respected as the best talker in the gang. He switches easily between black street talk and standard English.
Down with the crew. It means he's a member of your group. Crib is your house, where a breaker lives at. House means that you beat the guy, you challenge him. Check it out means pay attention to what's going on. Chill out means to cool out and max out. Jonesing means that you really want something real bad. Fierce means it's outstanding. Fresh word means it's good. Whack means it's stupid. I say, yo, that's bad, that's bad. That means that that's good. And if you say, that's good, that means you're moving not all right. It means bad, literally. And when you real bad, that means funky fresh. Oh man, it's fresh. It's funky fresh, bro. Is that you say? Mental institutions asking me, as you say? You basic dude, you tripping. Lace your shoes, think again, deja vu. Play with me, you play to lose. Call your homies, they'll be the bravest fools. I mean, take the clues.
An individual's ability to speak spontaneously, authoritatively, in the vernacular is not only highly prized, but is literally used in verbal combat.
When you finish round one, boy, you cast a stone. Look at the crowd, they eyes glued like they got lashes on in the draft zone. I'm with some mean boys, run up deep in the Jaheim voice. While you at the crib with your son watching Nickelodeon Teen Choice. You often throw a lot of negative shots at each other, and they're not necessarily genuine. Your mama joke, your cousin, there's no boundaries, I've heard all the type of jokes, all the type of like direct blazes, or somebody might call it blaze, and it didn't have to be like, I hate you and boom, it's just, we just battled with words, Folks in this dude lane.
It's as much about the language itself and the connections that are being made as it is about like how the language, like how it's being delivered.
People think that African American English is picking up these things from hip hop, when in fact hip hop is making use of long-standing features of African American English.
Now let me reiterate what I just said. I'm going to read a portion of this article here. Hip hop began in the early 1970s by marginalized youth of the South Bronx of New York City. The culture gave the youth a platform to be seen and heard, which places them at the center, for better or worse. The four original elements of hip hop are writing, DJing, breaking, MCing. Knowledge of self and community was added later. MCing, rapping, is the most notable and perhaps lucrative of the elements. Rap music unapologetically articulates the social, political, cultural, economic issues in Black communities by employing the Black language. Moreover, there is no hip hop. Listen, there is no hip hop without Black language, no matter the element. The whole culture revolves around elaborate Black storytelling that catches the audience's ears, imagination, and hearts. Now listen to this Latino brother and how he used AAV. But check out the next dude. He's really off the chain.
Hey, I was in a party and in the street party, and somebody came over to me and like big me up, a young artist and shit that is on the come up, and nigga big me up, told me who he was, whatever, and was like, "Yo, I know you because of that argument you had with Lord Jamal." I'm like, "Yo, man." I was hilarious. It's funny what people gravitate to, but we follow each other. We met each other, and everything.
Alcoholics, you know what I'm saying? Niggas like that, you know what I'm saying? You respect a nigga for robbing, stealing shit, taking niggas' ideas and all that, then you them niggas too. You want them niggas, you heard? I don't jack none of that shit, nigga. Originated shit, you heard? Coke, bitch, hard times. Real rap. Cause the nigga got a radio station, whatever, he do radio, whatever the fuck, and he's like 100 bullshit on networks. That means he's screaming. Nigga have 100, 200 motherfuckers being this place, that place, get one listener here, one listener. When we look, nigga probably got 5 listeners. But niggas beat you in the head like they got thousands of listeners. Anyway, he doing an interview with a nigga you think is popping. But only got like 5 niggas listening to the nigga. You know what I'm saying?
It's bad enough they're taking our vernacular, but they're changing our vernacular into Spanish. Check this out.
Many African-American East Coast slang terms are widely used in Puerto Rican Spanish, and these expressions are an integral part of everyday language in Puerto Rico. Mala mia, from the slang term my bad, meaning my fault. Frontear. Frontin, meaning to show off, or to try to act like someone you're not to impress other people. Barras, from the New York slang term bars, meaning verses or lines in a song. Comportate bien, from the New York slang term be good. It's something said in place of goodbye, equivalent to take care. These are just a few examples that you'll hear in Puerto Rican Spanish, and also in the music genre of reggaeton, which has become a worldwide sensation and has spread these slang terms to places like Colombia. Reggaeton started as a mix of Jamaican reggae, Jamaican dancehall music, and African-American hip-hop. It was later blended with Afro-Latino music like salsa, merengue, and so on.
Let me give you another example of just how influential Black American culture is. Here you have Afrika Bambaataa flashing the funk sign. He got that from George Clinton from the Parliament Funkadelic. Bambaataa was a huge Parliament Funkadelic fan, so much so when he performed his song Planet Rock, he would rock the same type of clothes that George Clinton would rock. Again, he was so influential in Bambaataa's life that even in the Zulu nations, brothers and Latinos will be rocking that hand sign. I want you to check this out. Now take a look at these 2 photographs. You see these guys belong to the Zulu Kings, right? And you notice the gentleman who is kneeling. He is repping the funk sign. He's Latino. And it looks like the other guy also who is kneeling is repping that sign as well. The guy standing to the right of the other guy kneeling, he's repping the funk sign. Look at the photograph to your right. The other brother with the cap on, he is repping the funk sign. So this is a clear indication of the influence that Black American culture has on non-Black people. Let me say this for the record. It's never a good idea to present information in the disguise of a documentary, especially if the facts don't line up. Why would the good doctor go to this extent to misrepresent Black American history and as a result fabricate the history of Latin music? There is no need to reinvent the history. Why was it so important to say that Bomba Plena influenced hip hop? There is no proof of that, but yet they said it. Why would you infer to your viewers to believe that people like Rafael Hernandez helped create ragtime music? Why would you infer to your people that Rafael Escudero and Juan Tissot helped create jazz? Yet you did that. These assertions, as I see them, I call them unforced errors. There's no need to do that. Be proud of your real history. Hip hop is an extension of Black American music excellence. Does it need some rehabilitation? Absolutely. Hopefully, we can reverse the negative trends of the culture which has been going on in the music for so long. Now, I want to send a special shout out to my brother Malik Bey, who have provided me with some information, that made this particular video possible. So I want to thank that brother. See, listen, I don't do this by myself. It takes a village to fight this battle. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll go into your neighborhood library, go to the children's section. There might be a CD or an MP3 version of this particular documentary, or should I say fairy tale, The Latin Breakdown. Good night, kids.